Friends, today is Wednesday, the 1st of July, and it's the feast of Saint Junipero Serra. And our gospel today, once again, continues the mighty works of Jesus, showing that the kingdom is breaking into the world. And we see that powerfully in these miracle examples that Matthew gives us. After the Sermon on the Mount, the words of Jesus speaking of this kingdom, and now we see it. We see it in the person of Jesus and the mighty works that he does. And thus far, we've seen that he has power over leprosy, over paralysis, over fevers, over storms, nature itself, and now even Satan himself. We have a very vivid and iconic story today in the gospel. Jesus takes his disciples to the Gadarene territory, a territory that is centered on the town of Gadara, a little southeast of the Sea of Galilee. It was pagan territory. In fact, everything about this territory is something that a Jew would avoid. It would be like someone taking us to a toxic waste dump. The same attitude would be present on the part of the Jews. They would say, "What? No, that's not safe. It's dangerous to go to that place." And so what was it like? Well, the gospel today gives plenty of examples of why this would be just completely out of the question for any Jew to enter. Largely non-Jewish. It was the place of dead bodies and tombs, pigs, and demons. Now, the list could probably go even further, but that would be enough. It is a place that is unclean, completely unclean, and no Jew would ever willingly go there. And yet that's precisely where Jesus takes his disciples. Of course, Jesus can never become unclean. Jesus brings cleansing and cleanliness to people and is not affected himself. The disciples themselves must have been a little worried about this venture, but nonetheless, the work of the gospel, the evangelization of peoples, must go everywhere, even to this Gadarene territory. And so it says that Jesus enters into this territory, and there are two demoniacs, in other words, two people possessed with demons, who were so savage, it says, that no one could travel that road. And they cried out, because they have supernatural knowledge of Jesus. These demoniacs cried out, demons cried out, "What have you to do with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the appointed time? Have you come here to torment us?" And the answer is yes. And in fact, not just to torment, but to dispel, expel them, to conquer them, even as the powerful works of Jesus have broken into the world. It breaks into this realm of Satan himself. And so the demons plead, "If you drive us out, send us into that herd of swine." Well, there's no love lost between Jews and swine. And Jesus, and Matthew without any explanation of why, Jesus simply says, "Go then, go into those swine," who take off running over a cliff into the ocean. I'm sure there was no love lost or crocodile tears at the death of these swine, the most unclean animal of all for Jews. But instead of bringing awe and wonder to the people, it brought fear. The breaking of the kingdom into the world has different responses. For some, it's a new age, a new beginning. God has come to save his people. But for others, it's perhaps the end of evil, the end of demons, the end of injustice and so on, there will always be a fight and a reaction to that. And thus the Gadarenes say to Jesus, they begged him to leave the district. Get out of here. We don't want you here. And Jesus doesn't say what he says or does, except that we know that when the gospel is not accepted, you shake the dust from your feet and you move on. Today, the feast of Junipero Serra, a good example of a person who also preached the gospel and faced many, many difficulties. Yesterday, we spoke about discipleship and the risk of discipleship. Junipero Serra was one of those people who brought the gospel to people. But, as we know, there is all sorts of controversy surrounding that. All we know and need to know is he's a saint of the church and preach the gospel. And we need to do the same. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.